Well, hey, Justin, how are you?
Doing good. Yeah, thanks for having us or having me. Glad to be with you today.
Good to see you. Welcome to our listeners and viewers who are joining the Arkansas chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics podcast. So, you're one of the very first guests on our podcast series. We're really excited to have you here today to talk about your work at Immerse Arkansas and to talk about trauma-informed care, which is kind of the reason we've gathered today. So, glad to
Right.
have you.
Yeah, thanks a ton.
Um,
It's an honor to be with you. So,
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about Immerse and what you do there and who you serve.
yeah. So Immerse works with youth who've experienced crisis and trauma, ages 14 to 24. So these are things like grown up in foster care or having been adopted or kind of being adjacent to that system in one way or another. Um, we work with youth who are currently homeless, who've experienced trafficking, different things like that. The really the common thread for all of them is that they've just come from an element of crisis, come from an element of trauma, and just need a lot of help to get into adulthood successfully. Need a lot of opportunities to heal. So we do that in a number of different ways. We've got a drop-in center here in the heart of Little Rock, where youth who just need help are homeless. They can come, and they can connect in with a coach. They can get anything from basic needs met, laundry, a meal, clothing, things like that, like real practical stuff that youth need, all the way to job placement, internships, therapy, um, housing supports, like a lot of the things that youth need to be able to resiliently move into adulthood. So that's often a kind of way that youth first interact with us. We've also got a transitional living program where youth who they either live in houses or apartments that we own around the community, or they're in a foster or adoptive placement. And so we're working with a lot of teens, 14 to 18-year-olds who are in those foster adoptive placements, who just that family needs a lot of support to be able to help that young person into adulthood. And then for those young people who, have already reached 18 and maybe aged out of foster care, um, they just need a lot of support, a lot of relationships, a lot of care and things like that to help them be successful in adulthood. We're excited that we're about to launch a brand new program that's kind of been years in the making. It's called The Station. It's going to be Arkansas's first shelter specifically for 18 to 24-year-olds. And the big idea there is how might we be able to protect young people who often have really difficult choices when they're homeless. They either live on the streets, they try to couch surf, or they go into an adult homeless shelter, which may be doing fantastic work, but just isn't designed for these young people. So, kind of that's our suite, our array of different services that we offer, different supports that we offer for those youth.
That is so wonderful. And what is your role in that? Just you specifically.
Yeah, so my role is assistant director. So I get to lead our leadership team, get to drive a lot of our implementation of strategy and kind of how we're moving the whole machine forward. I get to do a lot of leading, get to do a lot of thinking, a lot of wondering, a lot of problem solving. My background, I am a clinical social worker, and so have been a clinical director at a psychiatric hospital before. I've done a lot of work around therapy and helping lead therapists. So that's kind of the lens that I tend to look at some of this work, but don't get to do a whole lot of practice of that these days. So
Right. It's that hard trade-off when you do
Yep.
such a great job, then you move into a different role.
Yeah,
I know we share a background in working with Harmony Health Clinic many
Mhm.
years ago, it seems like at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
But I know you've really been focused on serving kind of a population of people that struggles to find all the resources that they need for many, many years. So
Yeah.
appreciate all your commitment to that
Thank you. You too.
over the
Yeah.
last time. And congratulations to you guys on the big new anonymous grant that you received to help kind of
Thank
move this forward. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, it's a huge blessing for us and allows us to open up that station program totally debt free that we can just focus on young people. We don't have to worry about some of the other things. We can really go hard after what they need and be able to meet their needs day one. So real excited and real thankful for that.
Well, good. Well, speaking of the needs that the youth you serve have, can you talk a little bit more in detail about some of the needs that they land on your doorstep with and that you can help them address?
Yeah, yeah. You know, when Immerse started about 14 years ago, it was really started under the idea that these youth who are aging out of foster care, that it's a housing problem, that we just needed more beds for young people to be able to have a place to go because they were aging out. They didn't have they didn't have a home. They didn't have a location to be. So we jumped into that work and it didn't go well. So we learned pretty quickly that it's not a bed problem, it's a trauma problem. And so as we've dug in more, learned a lot more, we've really understood that the trauma that our young people experience plays itself out in lots of different ways. You know, it shows up as substance use. It shows up as homelessness. It shows up as early pregnancies. It shows up as sometimes incarceration. um, but one of the common threads that we've seen with our young people, that I think leads to all of that is because of the trauma that they've experienced. There's this deep sense of, I don't belong anywhere. I am unwanted everywhere. And so it creates some real relationship problems. And so we understand that as young people interact with different systems, interact with different people, relationships are going to be really hard because of that trust that's been broken, because of that feeling of, I'm not wanted, I don't belong anywhere. It makes becoming a grown-up really tricky for these young people. So that's what we often see. Real practically, I struggle with finding a job, or I struggle with my mental health, or I struggle with addiction, or I've got a lot of real practical problems. I use money I don't use money wisely because I'm trying to meet a need that I don't quite understand. Those types of things are often just the symptoms of what we really know is trauma and this deep sense of I don't belong.
Right. That sounds like you need a big team of experts to help to help support these youth. Can you talk a little bit about who is inside your walls and who's outside your walls that are part of that team you together serve those youth?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a fantastic team. First of all, they are doing some amazing work. They're walking with youth. They are really just doing some amazing things. One of the cornerstone pieces of who's on the team is a coach. It's a paid team member on our staff whose real role is to slowly, methodically, over a long period of time, walk with that young person, help connect them to relationships, connect them to resources, kind of help be the hub of this like circle of support that we try to build around that young person, to where they can have the best opportunity to heal and grow and transform. And so, alongside of that coach is a therapist. We've recently been able, we're so thankful for this, through some support from the Blue and You Foundation, we've been able to really grow the number of therapists we have on the team. And so now we're at a place where really every youth that comes through our door has access to a therapist in a real like immediate, accessible, tailored, friendly way, that's there with them day one. You know, if they want it, we're ready for them. And we go hard after chasing them down, not in a, not in a aggressive way, but really making therapy become something that's appealing and interesting. We also have a team of recreation. We call them rec facilitators, and they're really there to create fun, adventure, engagement, and really allow youth to do things that they've never been able to do before. That they've probably thought are like, oh my goodness, this is so scary. I could never do this in my whole life. Um, but because of the relationships that that team forms with young people, they're able to just be with them in the hard, be with them in the scary, and let them know that they can do a whole lot more than they ever thought possible.
What's a
Um,
good example of that?
yeah, so weekly we're doing hikes, we're doing rock climbing, we're doing yoga. Just this past
Good
week,
adrenaline and like, yeah, adrenaline and kind of letting people experience some physical. I'm sure that's kind of a nice outlet for a lot of youth that may not be on their normal uh, to-do
absolutely.
list every day.
Yeah, yeah. This past week, we took a group to float the buffalo, and youth were, jumping into the river and swimming around and just like having a blast out in nature. And so many of these young people have never done anything like that before. We took a group to New Orleans one year to see the beach and listen to jazz and just like giving these experiences that, for many people, we think back to these different moments in our lives where like they were markers of transformation, they were markers of change, they were just these key memories that are really powerful. And so we're really trying to create that for our youth. So coach, therapist, some folks doing some recreation work. We also bring in volunteer mentors into the mix that are just signing on to say, I'm here. I'm with these youth for a long period of time, and I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on them. So I'm just going to stick with them and be some relational glue for that. Um, then folks outside of Immerse are really key to the work. So we're connecting in with pediatricians. We're connecting in with the medical community. We're sometimes connecting in even with additional mental health providers, psychiatrists, different things like that. Dentists, OBGYNs, like kind of the whole gamut of medical care. We really rely heavily on them to make sure that our youth are whole and well. Um, then we've got employment partners, we've got housing partners, lots of different folks around the community who are just walking alongside of us. We know that we're not the best at everything, and so part of our job is to try to find those that are and work really well together with them.
Awesome. I know that it can be hard sometimes, right? Figuring out who, and I think a lot of our members, our providers around the state can sometimes feel isolated, like they have to solve, they're worried about asking the question about what are your social needs because you start to peel those layers back and you were like, oh, I didn't know all that was there, right?
Yeah.
And so feeling that isolation versus feeling that teamwork and all the other partners you have around you to help support somebody. Um, how do you know? Like, how do you know when to refer? How do you know? How have you built that team in a way that that you focus on what you're best at, and then find the partners to help you in the places where they can?
Yeah, I think a lot of it for us is just consistently asking, what does this young person need?
Hmm.
And whatever the answer is to that, we try to figure out a way to meet that. So if we learn from a youth that we haven't seen a doctor in 5 6 years, like, well, we know we're not doctors, so we got to go find one. We got to go find one who cares deeply about this youth, right? um and so for us, it's always kind of connecting back with what does this youth need and how might we be able to meet that need in the most effective and streamlined and compassionate way. And so we're kind of constantly on the search for that, and have found a lot of great folks that we keep going back to. Yeah.
I think a lot of people in our world would call that peer coordination, and it sort of
Yep.
is, but you're doing it from more of a social lens, it sounds like, right? Trying to
Yeah.
it's still focused on the individual, but more holistic than just the healthcare piece of it. And I love that. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of our members would very much agree with you about the mental health piece of mental health addiction, those kinds of things being a really big challenge in what they see
Mhm.
every day right now. Um, so clinically, as a social worker, tell me about some of the most important clinical services you are able to provide. I know you mentioned therapy and making it fun. Can you talk a little bit more from the angle, kind of to the audience of our members, about what kind of services you're providing? What
Yeah.
kinds of therapy are most effective?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, part of what we're in the middle of building is just this crew who is excited about serving teens and young adults in therapy, um, but that is able to pair that excitement, pair that engagement with real skills, like real actual skills. So we are building a team who is trained in things like EMDR and brain spotting and internal family systems and experiential therapy. These types of kind of focuses in therapy that are super trauma focused, that are engaging, that are proven to be really successful, so that our team has a ton of eclectic skills to be able to walk alongside of youth in ways that are going to be really effective. Um,
Great.
and so, we're building that in-house. We also really feel like a big part of that transformative model is truly that like opportunity for adventure and recreation and some of those skills. And so it's kind of a twofold model for us clinically that we think, hey, opportunities to be pushed a little bit further in the context of that therapeutic community and with therapists going alongside of you who can do some processing in the moment, who can
Right.
go on this hike with you. And as you're looking out over this beautiful scene, we can have some conversations about what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's hard? What's good? Building some of those coping skills and some of those abilities for youth to become more and more resilient. Um, Areas that we tend to struggle in are around psychiatry. Like that's just a hard nut to crack, And so,
Everybody.
yeah, yeah. And I know that I'm certainly preaching to the choir here, but that's an area that our youth have like kind of longed for some better resources in. Have really wanted to be able to get some of those needs met really well, but it's tricky. We still struggle there. So we try our best to connect clinically with some of that psychiatry world. So that's kind of what makes up the team for us, the clinical team for us.
Are y'all do you do both individual and group therapy formally?
We do,
But
yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds like you kind of have that nice ability to have a cohort of people who share, who can go and have adventures that are maybe not a therapy session too,
Mhm.
which is really awesome. So I
Absolutely,
can
yeah,
imagine that some of the youth might be making the first group of real and consistent friends they may have had in their more adult part of their lives too, I would think.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. Adventure experiences that creates relationship. Like I'm sure we all think about like different trips we've had with groups of friends that were really monumental in our lives.
You had
So.
to carry that boat 47 miles down the Buffalo River when it was
Right.
dried up, right? I mean,
Oh
that
man.
that'll bond you in a new
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, that road trip in the tiny car with everybody smelling bad and
Right,
that kind of
right.
stuff. Yeah, those are key moments in life for sure.
Love it, love it. Um, Talk about so it sounds like you have a really engaging program, and I would love to hear how you bring the voices of youth themselves into the work that you do, how you elevate the voice of youth, how you take their feedback and use it to shape what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple different ways that we do that. Kind of first off, we let the youth really guide a lot of their plan. And so, we aren't aimless in how we're working with young people. Like we know where we're headed, But we really allow the young person a ton of choice in that process. So as we build their plan, as we like kind of work together with who do they go see for to go to the doctor, who do they like, who is their therapist, we really allow them a lot of voice, a lot of choice, which is just so key to trauma informed care. And so that's probably like really, really cornerstone, really foundational to some of that work. Um, but we're also doing a lot of things where we have a thing called the feedback blitz that we do usually quarterly around here, where we just survey all of our young people and we ask them what's working for you, what's not working for you, how much do you like what is happening, what suggestions do you have, things like that. We also, and it's valuable feedback for us. We just finished one up, and learned so much about what young people are experiencing and how they're feeling connected to their coach or not feeling connected to their coach. And so it gives us a lot of tools to be able to continue to develop our programs in ways that are going to be meaningful to them. Um, but then we've also established an alumni program. So youth who are just a step out of their time with us, and we're giving them opportunities to lead and to coach and to even peer mentor a little bit. But some of the value that we certainly get out of that is, hey, what do you think about what we're doing? Hey, what was helpful for you as you went through this journey? And really allowing young people to speak back into the overall goals that Immerse has. We had a really interesting experience the other day where we gathered 12 of our youth, 12 of our board members, and 12 of our staff who aren't like our key leader decision makers. And we just kind of tried to open it up for vision, like what is needed. And what was beautiful about this experience is that it wasn't our board who spoke the most. It wasn't our team who spoke the most. It was our youth. They had lots of opinions. They had lots of amazing ideas. And they were really excited to have a platform to be able to share those things. So that was really, really meaningful to be a part of.
That's awesome. I've really I've done a lot of work with doing community health needs assessments in
Mhm.
my career over the years, and getting to go out and talk with communities about what they want and need to have a better outcome in the long term is one of the most joyful and inspiring things that I could do, because I truly believe everybody wants the best for themselves, for their child, and sometimes it's hard to get there.
Ah,
Uh, and so
yes.
figuring out the best ways to connect to the ways to support them is great. So, um, on the with that, you brought up one question for me. So when you talk about alumni, that means people have a tenure with you. About how long do people stay in your services before they either graduate or disassociate? I know I'm sure not everybody completes everything,
Sure.
but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And with the nature and kind of variety of our different programs, youth are able, I mean, one way that I say it is kind of choose your own adventure. So some youth come and they can interact with us in a relatively transactional way. They can come and get their needs met. They can grab a meal, and we let them do that because we know that that's what they need. All the while we're like buddying up to them, trying to inspire them to like, hey, let's build a plan together. Hey, let's jump into these good things. Some say no. And so, they come and maybe they're around for a week or two and then we don't see them again.
yeah.
Others, they're a part of our transitional living program. We call it Life Base for years.
Okay. Wow.
Maybe they start as a teenager and then we're walking with them all the way into adulthood. And so kind of that window of change for us and that window of like where we feel like we've maybe developed a little bit of an expertise is 14 to 24. And so we also realize that it's not helpful. We don't find it to be helpful that like, okay, it's your 24th birthday. You're now done. Like that's not helpful to anybody. Nobody likes that. I'm about to turn 40 and I don't want anybody to say like, you're not allowed to be a part of this group anymore. Um,
It's
So
okay. I'm 42. The 40s aren't
okay,
quite so bad. So,
I'm excited about it. I'm excited. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. Um, but to answer your actual question, most of our young people are with us for about, a year to 18 months, probably on average, with a pretty strong, maybe it's standard deviation. I don't think that's the right word. That's not my skill, but a big
the
variety
bell
outside of
curve
that.
is wide.
The bell curve is wide. Thank you. That's much better. That's much better to say.
Well, good. That's a long time to work with people. And I'm sure you get some pretty good outcomes. And this was not on the list of questions I sent you, but before we get to the last question, what
Sure.
are some of the outcomes you like to brag about? It sounds like you have a lot of good philanthropic funding, but you maybe have relation. Do you bill payers and like bill insurance for some of your services? No, you do all of it
Yeah.
through donations. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell me about what some of your outcomes are that you like to brag about.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that we've just recently uncovered is that it's about 60%, I think was around the number of our youth are plugged into some sort of mental health support. So they're digging into therapy, they're attending some of those transformational experience adventure kinds of things. Like they're excited about their own mental health and they're engaging in what we're up to. Um, we kind of target outcomes around well-being, connection to a mentor, safe and stable housing, and earning potential. Those are really the key areas that we capture a lot of our broad outcomes. And over the past several months, our youth have been employed at 100% rates. Every youth in our program is connected to school or employment.
Wow.
Uh, that's not always the case, but recently we've just been able to see our team do some amazing work and our youth become really excited about that work. Areas that we need more help in are around mentors. Like we need more mentors to see even better outcomes in those areas for the youth that we're working with, more people to just stick with them over a long period of time. So that's some of
Yeah.
what we're up to.
You know, we talk a lot about wanting kids to be, functional adults when they graduate from high school, and y'all are working with some folks who may be struggling with that, but it sounds like you get them there in the end to be able to have
Yeah,
a job, to be able to have a safe place to live, to be able to have positive and structured interaction, good positive interactions with other people. Those are the things you want for your kids,
yeah,
right? And you're
yeah.
doing a great job of
Yeah,
doing that.
thanks. That's the goal. And we it's a long journey with a lot of steps forward and steps back and reset to the whole process. But our hope is that the young people after, interacting with us can heal, can transform, can become those resilient whole adults. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, what is your advice to our pediatrician members who are caring for youth who either are served at Immerse or could be served by Immerse? Those youth who may have experienced trauma in one way or another.
Yeah. I think we can't underscore it enough that to deeply work to understand trauma, to deeply work to uncover and identify the different spaces in which trauma has been impactful to the young people that they're serving. Um, I think to that end, relationship is just so tricky for people who come from trauma. And so, what might feel like non-compliance or might feel like, apathy or, some of those things that some of our young people often get labeled, like they're non-compliant, they're impossible, they don't want it. Um, Peel back that onion a little bit more, stick with them, ask questions, be able to more deeply understand what's going on. And what we've really seen work is it works for young people when we're able to stick with them. And so, staying with your young people, inviting them back, checking in on them when possible. I know that's hard in some medical models, but to be able to let them know that you care about them as a human
Mhm.
is just so critical. And then help reach out. You're not alone. Like we're here. There's so much great work happening all across Arkansas, and so reach out, become familiar with those in your communities who are doing really good work, because we want to pair up with you too. We like you, we want you, we need you, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Love it. Well, that is great. And as we wrap up, one more question. I know you've done some really powerful work with residents and you're engaging with all of the resident pediatrician trainees who are coming through UAMS and Arkansas Children's. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looks like, and maybe it will inspire some of our other members to get involved and or send folks your way?
Yeah. Yeah, so we are lucky to be able to uh, regularly have visits from a group of residents who get to learn about what we're up to, who we get to share a little bit about, not only what we're doing, but how we're doing it. And we get to share a little bit about some of this trauma-informed work that we're trying to prop up. And so it's fun to be able to interact with everyone. We also are partnered up with Children's Circle of Friends Clinic here. And they send residents over to speak to our youth before their clinic, and develop some of that relationship and destigmatize going to the doctor. And for our youth, it's tremendously valuable to see somebody on a Tuesday night who you then again see as your doctor,
Right.
on a Friday afternoon. And so that's all led by that crew, which is just, we're so
Awesome.
grateful to have them as partners, and just to get to be a part of their learning and their journey. So
We're so excited. I know we spoke about this before we started recording, but I got to speak with them, with the new residents that have just started, that start on July 1, I guess, at Arkansas Children's and UAMS. And I think they did a bus tour of the city today and maybe popped by Immerse
good.
to
Yeah, we
talk with
got to hop on the bus and talk over the little bus microphone, which
your
is always
tour.
very tour guide feel to it.
Well, wonderful. Well, Dustin, as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share about Immerse, about the work you do, or about partnerships?
No, we're just excited. Over the next 5 years, we hope to grow more around the state and launch additional sites around the state. So, places like Northwest Arkansas, the Delta, different places like that. We're excited to be able to come into. So we hope to be able to pair up with more doctors around the state, and ultimately more youth around the state who get to hopefully heal.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us for our podcast today. And
Thanks for having me.
we'll in the comments when we post this, we'll put the link to the Immerse website so people can go check you out there. So thank you
Wonderful.
for all
Please
you
do.
do.
Yeah, we'd love to chat and learn more. So
All right. Thank you so much.